50 more feet to work with. Does that make sense? And what's on either side of both those sections? Okay, stores connections on both sides. Okay, there's no male, there's no female. It is, once again, a sexless operation going on. Okay? So, the other things that you have on these stores connections is you are checking to make sure that you have gaskets present. Okay? The gaskets on both the stores connections. Alright? And then sometimes they're rubber and sometimes they're cloth. If they gain a little bit of moisture and they're starting to stink a little bit, what can we do with them? Okay, let them dry a little bit, maybe unravel them, unroll them, okay? And just like anything, if you leave it there too long, what does it do? If you let it sit the way it sits. Conform. So it gains memory. It has that memory to it, okay? So we need to unroll the hose and maybe roll it from the other side, okay? To keep one section, or the male side or the female side, because it is sexless. If we can keep it rolled from one side to the other, it won't matter, right? Okay, so we need to work both sides. Alright? The other thing we have in there is a low profile strainer. What does that go in conjunction with? What does that work with?
Duct tape and your hard section.
The hard suction, correct? Okay, so the hard suction up top doesn't have a low profile strainer threaded to it all the time? Does not. Okay? What are we looking for on the low profile strainer? Two things that are on it that we need to make sure are on it.
Yes.
Make sure it has the jet siphon.
Okay, so the cap, right? If we don't have the cap, how many inches of water are we losing roughly?
3, 5.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Alright? So once the water gets below that jet siphon connection, we're losing the draft that we have established. Okay? The other thing we're looking for, you said it, is the gasket. Okay? Making sure that there is a proper gasket on there. Alright? And then there's a flex suction stand. The stand that rarely gets used, I will be honest, it doesn't get used often because of how really dainty it is. Okay? It's not really built for the weight that we're putting on it. All it is just an X stand. It sits parallel with each other. You can put it perpendicular with each other and you can set it, and all it does is just keep bubbles from forming inside your flex suction if you need to. So instead of having a sagging hose, you can have a hose that stands straight up and then drops back down. Make sense? Okay. And what else goes on that side of the truck sometimes?
Gear caution.
An officer's gear, right? Whoever's riding out of that truck with them. Okay. See the door, make sure you're checking for operation on the door once again on that truck. It's operating open and then operating closed. Never catch anything in the door because those doors can accidentally come open and spill all your stuff out. Okay? Alright, moving on to running equipment. Any questions on any of the equipment so far? Nothing. Alright. So running the equipment, there's a difference in how we run the equipment, okay? On a day like today where it's just weathered outside, you got nothing but rain pouring down, is there any reason to pull the apparatus out, pull all the equipment out, and run it? Okay? What are you doing to it if you're doing that? You're just getting everything wet and chancing corrosion, you know, you're not going to dry every piece of equipment you bring out, alright, and you are putting it in just weathered operations. We don't do that. What about cold temperatures? Okay, very rarely you'll bring it out in cold temperatures. 35 degrees, and so for me, if it's 45 degrees or below, those doors aren't opening and that truck's not getting pulled out anyways. Okay? Make sense? Alright. As the equipment is ran, take time to ensure the equipment stays running for the desired inspection time. If I go out there and I start the truck, and I go back inside real quick to find something, I come back out and the truck is not running anymore, I need to find out why. Okay? I need to find out if someone shut the truck off or if it shut itself off. And if it shut itself off, what do we have? A huge problem and probably a fuel issue or a battery issue, right? Okay? So we need to note that, document that. Same thing with the pump. Same thing with anything else that's running on the truck, okay? We want to make sure it's running the same and to optimal, the optimal performance that it always should all the time. So daily versus weekly. On a daily inspection, the main priority is to be sure that the equipment is visually on board and making sure that everything that looks like it should be there on an everyday basis is there. Your eyes should be trained to walk around that vehicle, open a compartment, and if something is missing, your eyes should be trained to notice that that one thing is missing. Okay? On a weekly inspection, all equipment should be removed from compartments and thoroughly inspected. If it can run, run it. If it has moving parts, remove those parts. If it needs lubricated, lubricate it. Okay? Threads, check, all that stuff. Alright. all equipment ran with fuel and that have an exhaust should be ran in a well-ventilated area or outside for no more than 5 minutes. Allow cooling before refueling and avoid hot shutdowns. What is a hot shutdown?
I will look
Okay, if it's running to full capacity and then all of a sudden we just hit the off button, what does that do? It hurts it a lot. So we have fluids inside the piece of equipment running at full bore, okay? And then we shut it down and all of a sudden those fluids are like, oh, I need to do rapid cooling now, okay? Exhaust could possibly backfire on you, okay? Yeah, that's an issue, okay? Anything that's hot doesn't want to be rapidly cooled. So cool it down, run it down to an idle, and then shut it off. When we're doing inventory and cleanliness, all equipment on the apparatus should be inventoried on the last truck inspection weekly of every month and documented. Okay, what do we use for our documentation? Alright, we have a first due app, correct? And on that first due app, we have worked hard and diligently to make sure that every piece of equipment is inventoried on there to the proper, number one, quantity and location of the apparatus, okay? So if it's not there, or if it needs changed, who needs to know? Supervisor, okay? So we need to make sure anyone who needs to know is in the know. Maybe send out some emails, some memos to other shift members to make sure that they're all aware of the changes, if any changes were made. And then we need to make sure that everything that we used, if we got it dirty, we clean it. If we found it dirty, it doesn't matter. We clean it, okay? Whoever finds it, fix it, okay? If you can't fix it, take it out of service, and the next person who comes in who can fix it, will fix it. Either way, someone needs to know and be made aware of. And then at the end of the month, what do we do for the compartments? Sometimes a vacuum may do the job. Sometimes we have pieces of equipment that like to leak oil and fuels, okay? If that's the case, maybe a little bit of squirt Simple Green and a grease rag or something like that. Wipe it down, and then that'll do it justice. One of the hardest parts of the apparatus to keep clean is the cab, especially on a season like we have now. All the pollen and everything like that. Sometimes a duster doesn't do it justice, and all these little